I never joined a gang. I never was a big dope peddler. But I have a story. We all have a story. For the past few years, I've been interviewing other people. But going forward, I'm still going to interview other people, but I'm going to use my platform to share more of my story. I'm just going to hit record and talk. No notes, nothing pre-planned. I'm just going to talk about my life. Call it therapy, if you will. There are 3 main phases in my life, and I'm going to break them down in different episodes. My 3 phases are my Long Beach years, my Bell Gardens years, and my Downey years. All 3 of them equally have a special place in my heart. My story starts in Long Beach, California. I was born at St. Mary's Hospital in 1978 to a white mother and a black father. Now, I know nowadays mixed couples are everywhere. White women are dating black men. Black women are dating white men. It's nothing nowadays. Everyone's doing it. That wasn't so much the case in the 1970s. Let me tell you a little bit about my parents, because that story is interesting in itself. My white mother, whom I love to death, is from a little small town in Indiana, in southern Indiana. Boonesville or Shelbyville, I still can't remember. It's in that general area. The area that she grew up in is literally the home of the Indiana chapter of the KKK. My white mother probably had 100 people at her school, just guessing, at her high school. Very small town. And in fact, this town was so small that she had never seen a black man in person in her life up until that point while she was in Indiana. She moves with my grandmother to Long Beach, California, just around the senior year of high school. So could you imagine that off top? She moves from a very small town where she has never even seen one black man in person, maybe on TV, maybe Good Times, you know. Even though her upbringing was very, very poor, they probably didn't even have a TV, and I'm not bullshitting you. We're talking farm poor. We're talking share the same underwear for days on end poor. She shared stories with me. But she moves from that little old farm town to Long Beach, California. And anybody who knows anything about Long Beach, California, it is very racial. You could knock on 4 different doors and get 4 different ethnicities back then. So imagine just the culture shock of a little white old lady. And my mom was very beautiful. She is beautiful to this day, don't get me wrong, but she was a hottie. She was a little hottie. Coming to Long Beach, California. My father was living in Long Beach, California at that time. He and my father's side of the family roots started obviously in the South, as everyone's does, but then they ended up in Vallejo, California, up north. Shout out to E40. Then they migrated down here to Southern California, to where my father made Long Beach his home. Now, a little bit about my father. I've already told you about my mom, right? Total opposite. My father, at one point, was a businessman. And I don't mean a businessman where he's going out working 9 to 5 and closing deals. No, he was a businessman, which is a gang, a club that was around before the Crips and Bloods. You had the businessmen, the Slossons, some others that I can't think off the top of my head, but my father was a businessman. When he was alive, I tried to get him on my show to talk about his story, but that sounded like a part of his life that he didn't really want to relive, let alone jump on the internet, which in his mind, he was in his 70s. He thinks the internet is just like everybody, people are going to start knocking on your door. Like he doesn't get he never really grasped the internet. So he always felt it was kind of strange that people who did things in the past were sharing their story. He just didn't get it. God bless his soul. But my father was a businessman before the Crips and Bloods came along. And just a little bit that we did talk about, he said he noticed once Crips and Bloods started, he noticed a change, and he just said, what, I'm leaving this life all together. This was not what he got into it for. And the businessmen and the Slossons and things like that pretty much gave birth to the Crips and Bloods of what we know today. Check out Bastards of the Party. It's a great documentary. If you haven't checked it out, Bastards of the Party gives you a great history. So 1970s, Long Beach, California. They're living in the same apartment complex. And they end up hooking up. And here I am. Now, remember, I said that earlier. I told you that she moved here with my grandmother. So my mom and my grandmother moved here to Long Beach. I also mentioned what type of environment my mother grew up in, meaning it was not too kind to the colored folk back there in southern Indiana. Now, needless to say, Grandma was not really too all excited about Mama having not only dating a black man, but about to have a little chocolate swirl baby. They had their issues during that time. And one thing I could say is my grandma always treated me right. She treated me well. She treated me with love. So obviously, whatever feeling she had when I was first born, thankfully, they didn't carry on. And to this day, I just miss going to Grandma's house on Easter. Little things like that. There's a certain smell I remember. Mom and Dad hook up. I'm born. Boom. Here we go. Still living in Long Beach. We're on the east side. From what I understand, when I was first born, we were living on 4th Street. And then we eventually moved to what I remember the majority of my young life being, and that was 21st Street. 326 East 21st Street. And it's apartments. It's right on the corner of Long Beach Boulevard and 21st Street. And as you can imagine, living there in the early to mid to late 80s, it was pretty rough for a civilian like myself and a lot of others because, yes, the gangs were all at war. If you think it's bad now, and this is no knock on what's going on now because stuff is still really bad right now, but it was really, really, really bad in the 80s and 90s. It was like really, really bad. So we lived on 326 East 21st Street. I don't want to give the exact apartment because I don't want somebody knocking on their door just randomly being like, hey, did you know Dusty Vision used to live here? Don't do that because it will probably not end well because that is still the hood. I drive past there all the time just to reminisce, and that's still the hood. I went to Burnett Elementary, which since has changed names. I was just there recently driving past, and I was like, oh shit, they actually changed names. But I remember experiencing the 87 Whittier earthquake there specifically in the morning. A lot of my people in my 40s and up will remember the Whittier earthquake. It was 1987. It was a pretty big damn earthquake, and Long Beach is not too far from Whittier, so we felt it. We felt it pretty strong. But I remember specifically a very funny story. My mom teaching me where to walk and where not to walk, what streets to go down and what streets not to go down. This little old white lady, and my father was sent out of the picture. I'll get to that in a bit, but this funny story real quick. My mom would always, well, not always, I remember her teaching me how to walk home without basically running into a bunch of gang members, because there were streets, I think Elm Avenue was one of them, where just a bunch of Crips hung out on, and you hit the wrong corner back then in the 80s, and you could literally run into just 43 Crips hanging out on the corner. This was a different time before gang injunctions and things like that, but it was very, very common. But I remember mom teaching me, hey, go down this street, don't go down this street. And one time I remember not listening to her, and I went down the wrong street. She told me not to, and yes, I ran into what seemed like at that time 743 Crips, and I'm just like, oh shit, I'm just stepping over 40-ounce bottles and niggas playing dice. It was like Boys in the Hood, that scene where homeboys walking back from school after getting suspended, and then these dudes are playing dice and they start fighting. It was that literally was exactly what it was. But nobody bothered me. But I understood why she didn't want me to walk down there, because once again, drive-bys were very prevalent back then. I mean, it was nothing to hear. I remember being younger, hearing gunshots outside. And no matter how much your parents would, mom, not parents, would try to keep you away from it, there's no way you can cover my ears when I'm hearing gunshots and tires screeching off in the alley that we live right next to. Very, very poor. Poverty. Which I say that respectfully, because my mother always did what she could, and I never went to sleep hungry. We may have had to eat bean patties and top ramen a few days in a row, but you know what, damn it? You know what mom would do? Mom is going to make sure one night, if it's top ramen, we're having chicken top ramen, and she's going to add some chicken to that shit. A little couple vegetables, maybe slice up some carrots. Hey, next night, maybe beef night. Shit, throw a little tapatio in there. You know what it is. Good times. Good times. But poverty. That part was rough. Because even though you're younger and like you at a very young age, you know that you don't have certain things that other people may have. You know, you see people, you notice right away that, hey, that person lives in a big house and I live in a small apartment. Little things. You start to notice your class, and I hate to use that word, but you start to notice where you are in life at a very young age. But I'll tell you what, once again, mom always dressed me nice, kept me looking fly, and I never went to bed hungry. Were there nights where she couldn't afford the heat bill and we had to take cold baths or showers? Yes. I know someone right now listening knows exactly what I'm talking about. Those cold showers. And it seems like it was usually in wintertime, because, you know, I guess that makes sense. That's when people use the most heat, and that's probably when the heat bill's the highest, and you can't afford it some months. But it just seemed like it was always in the wintertime. But you know what? Made the best of it. Made the best of a rough situation. Long Beach was fun. I remember having, at one point, around 84, 85, which was I was about 6 or 7, a lot of Cambodians moving into my area. And I had a couple of really good Cambodian friends. That was really cool. I have pictures. Very awesome pictures of me and just a bunch of Cambodian homies. And to this day, that's why I got mad love for Cambodians, because I grew up around a lot of Cambodians. And anybody living in Long Beach knows exactly what I'm talking about. We talk alike, we dress alike, and it's all love. So shout out to the Cambodian homies in the city of Long Beach. And I know in 85 that had something to do with what was going on in the country of Cambodia. A lot of them came to this country, and a lot of them, for some reason, migrated to Long Beach. Good times. And of course, I had a couple of Hispanic homies, but I remember there being a lot of black folks on my street back in the day. I feel like there were more black folks than anything back in the 85, 86. And someone could look up the demographics. I could be completely wrong, but I feel like, looking back, I feel like there was more black folks. And I say that because I drive through now and there's no black folk. Like, there's literally no black people. It's really, really, definitely interesting change. Long Beach was cool. A lot of good memories. Like I said, a lot of gunfire and ambulances and sirens. We lived near Long Beach Boulevard, which is a very loud street. It's probably still the same. I just remember being very, very loud. But I remember taking trips to the beach, Cherry Beach. We called it Cherry Beach, but I think it was more like Bixby Knolls or something, but not Bixby Knolls. But it's right across the street from Cherry Park on Ocean, for any of my Long Beach friends out there. I remember taking bus trips with my mom to the beach, back and forth. Good time. And Pops was not really around at all. I don't have any young memories of my father. I have one memory that sticks in my head, and this is not to knock the man, because he's apologized to me, and we were good up until his unfortunate passing about a year ago. But only memory that I could kind of remember is him coming to my fifth or sixth birthday party. And I even remember that more because there's an infamous picture that I have it to this day, of me and him standing in front of our garage at 326 East 21st Street. Me and my mom's garage. He did not live with us. And after that, I don't remember the next time I saw him. Now, in hindsight and us talking, he did confide in me that drugs and the alcohol were just too strong, and the streets were just too strong at that point of his life, and they were a little more important. Thankfully, I had my Aunt Rosemary, who is still alive to this day. She is 82, and she makes me believe that God still exists, man. She's a great woman. She's a great woman. My other aunts, Auntie Denise, Kathleen, they all took care of me. They were all around. They were pressuring my dad into taking care of me, and doing stuff with me. But he just, for whatever reason, like I said, the substances, it just allowed him not to do that. But I got to shout out my aunts, man, because they were definitely around when he was not. Yeah, I grew up without a father, so I was peeing sitting down for like longer periods than I should have, until one of my friends, I think it was one of my friends, told me, "Hey, dog, you shouldn't be pee sitting down. You're a boy." And I was like, "Oh," and then I kind of was embarrassed, so I never peed sitting down. I didn't get it, but that's what you see, and that's what your mom teaches you, and shout out to her, bless her heart. But that's why it's a little important to have a man around. But yes, my pops didn't. Yeah, I probably saw him a couple of times from age 5 to about 18. And then at 18, he showed up at my graduation. And that will be in my Downey segment. When I graduated from Downey High School. That's a story in itself, but Long Beach gave me one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. My little brother. We do not share the same father. My mom was single, when she left my father. I don't ever remember her dating at all. She never had any men in and out of her house, never. And that right there is respect right there, because I don't ever remember any men and all that coming in and out of the house. She was always respectful in that sense. She could have, I would still love her and respect her to this day, but she just never had men around. Then comes who was soon to become my stepfather, Dagoberto. That is his name, Dagoberto. Great man. He has since resting in peace right now, along with my biological father. But Dagoberto was so good to me. Their family, which is my family, was so, and to this day is and was so good to me. I was a little black kid. They were all Latinos, Mexican, and some of them straight from Mexico. And they never treated me different. They treated me like one of them. I can't think of one situation, and I'm not just saying this because this is my family, my brother's family. I'm not saying this because it's them. I can't think of one thing. They always treated me like family, man. But yes, my mother ends up meeting and marrying Dagoberto. Awesome man. One thing I loved about him, and we bonded right away, is first off, he liked boxing. So he got me into boxing right away. And to this day, boxing is my favorite sport. And it's very ironic because my biological father also, that's his favorite sport. So it was kind of funny how, my stepfather and my biological father both love boxing. But he would get the Mike Tyson fights and the Julio Cesar Chavez fights back in the day. Mike Tyson, you remember the Mike Tyson fights? You get the fight and fight be over in 33 seconds. But it was fun, and he taught me a lot about boxing. And he was still learning English at this time, which there was a little language barrier there, but we both understood. Another good memory that I have with my stepfather was going to wrestling matches. He took me to WrestleMania 2. Now, it wasn't ringside, but it was closed caption. It was a big screen just outside of, I think, the Long Beach Convention Center. And I saw WrestleMania 2 there on the big screen. Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, King Kong Bundy. I think that Mr. T was in that one, if I'm not mistaken. And I just remember that being so dope. And he got me WrestleMania 3 at the house. Man, I was the talk of the town forever. WrestleMania 3, are you kidding me? WrestleMania 3, Andre the Giant versus Hulk Hogan. Those are two great memories I have with my stepfather. But things got crazy, as it always does in the hood. I specifically remember one time we were just laying down watching TV, and a Molotov cocktail came through our window. Yes, you heard that right. A Molotov cocktail. Someone just threw a Molotov cocktail through our window. And I was too young to understand what was going on, but the fire was put out. The police were called. I still haven't asked my mom about that. I got to ask her about that if she remembers that. One thing that happened, and this is probably for the better, my mom ended up getting a good job with the county. My Aunt Rosemary told her about her job hiring Rancho Los Amigos Hospital in the city of Downey. My mom ended up going for the interview and she got the job. And that is when our life changed. It's not like we were balling out of control, but I had Kaiser now. Now, if I get sick, I'm going to Kaiser, and it's only $5 for medicine. I'm not sitting in no urgent care or emergency room, a general hospital, whatever. So little things like that. A consistent check. You know what I mean? And my mother was there up until she retired just a few years ago. But that changed our life. And that brought me to the city of Bell Gardens, which is right next to Downey, because my mother did not like driving freeways and things like that. So she could not, I'm assuming, I haven't asked her, but this is what I'm assuming, because I know her that she doesn't like driving far and freeways and things like that. But she needed to move somewhere closer to her job. Her job was in Downey, and probably at that time, I'm assuming my stepfather and her couldn't afford anything in Downey because Downey was still a very nice white city. So we moved to Bell Gardens, which is literally right next door to Downey. And that is where I'm going to leave off. Next up, I'm going to discuss my time in the city of Bell Gardens. I hope you tune in.